I'd like to welcome everyone to the 103rd meeting of the 7th Council of the Municipality of South Dundas for Monday, November the 8th. We have already unofficially called the meeting to order, officially called the meeting to order and had our closed session, so we're recalling it back to order this evening. Our first order of business tonight is a firefighter award ceremony, so I'd like to call on Chief Morehouse to join me at the front and away you roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to acknowledge 3 members of our fire service who are moving from probationary firefighters to firefighters tonight. So first, we'd like to thank Council for their support over the last year, and we look forward to doing the same here in 2022. You asking me to move over, sorry?
That better? Okay.
Tell
you what, I'll do all this
There
side.
we go,
Here we
Mr.
go.
Mayor. Sorry. We'll get it together yet. So today we're here to celebrate the graduation of 3 members that have spent the last 12 months working hard to reach this moment. We want to congratulate all 3, their families, and wish them many more years of service in the municipality of South Dundas. First of all, I'd like to call firefighter Malik Conkley and his wife Sarah. Come on up. And we'll give this to Sarah first. We'll let her do the honors. Yep. Start with Ray. Malik, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
You can sit down. Secondly, we would like to we'd like to call on Robert Watzinger and his wife Idako. Ildiko. 812.
612?
Yeah, 812.
612?
Yep. And we'll let your wife have the honor of putting those on, Robert.
Thank you very much.
Robert, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Last but not least, Blaine Morn and his wife Michelle. We're on a delay. I can hear myself all of a sudden. Yeah. Something to say afterwards. Blaine, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I also want to take a moment to say and welcome 14 new members to our fire service that started on November 1st. We want to welcome all the 14 new hires that we just took on. And the South Dundas Fire and Emergency Services had an extra special successful year this year, and we hope that we can do at least what we've done this year or above and beyond. So I'd like to thank our deputies, all our officers, all our firefighters that we have for supporting us and moving forward. And Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Chief. On behalf of the municipality of South Dundas, I'd like to welcome all three of you to our firefighter services and emergency services. I know that the three up here that are your leaders, it will certainly guide you, and we certainly hope that you have a safe time out there, and we will certainly support you in all the endeavors that you do. So thank you.
And thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, we can go.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Okay, and welcome back from our short break. And I'd like to thank the chief and deputies, and certainly congratulate our new full-time firefighters. Confirmation agenda. Any additions, deletions, or amendments, Madam Clerk?
We've been asked to move 10C from the consent agenda to discussion items.
Okay,
And-
go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, okay. Well, it's updated, right? The polling of the Morrisburg Waterfront Community?
Yeah, that's what 10C is. It's E now. Thank you. Anything else from any member of council this evening? Any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof this evening? On the drain report, where they will be discussing the toy drain, the portion where the toy petition is any part of that discussion, I will declare conflict due to our code of conduct that the petitioners are my cousins, so it's not a pecuniary, but it's part of our code of conduct. The adoption of the minutes for October 25th and November 3rd, regular and special meeting, please.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that the minutes of the 101st regular and in-camera meetings and the 102nd regular and in-camera meetings of council be adopted as circulated.
Any discussion on any of that? Seeing none, all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Okay, tonight we have a presentation from Harold Claywick from Keystone Bridge. He is going to give us a brief summary of our 2021 OSIM Bridge Report. So Harold, welcome back to South Dundas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So I believe there's a PowerPoint presentation that will...
Yes, the council has the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, we have ours.
Okay, wonderful. So I wasn't sure if I was speaking to the presentation.
No, but yes.
I have a copy for sure. I wasn't sure if I was just doing it over the screen again. But I presume then you'd like me to speak to the presentation on paper.
Yes,
Very
please.
well. Okay. The requirement to inspect bridges is a statutory obligation in Ontario, and any structure that has a span more than 3 meters is required to be inspected every 2 years, with some minor exceptions for smaller culverts. Keystone Bridge Management inspects the structures for Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, and has inspected the structures for South Stormont for 2 cycles now. This is the first cycle of inspections for the municipality of South Dundas. And so all of these structures are new to Keystone Bridge Management. There are 33 structures that satisfy the statutory obligation for inspection. Of those 33, 12 are bridges and 21 are large culverts. They all have a span greater than 3 meters, or else if they have more than one barrel, the sum of the spans exceeds 3 meters. The value of the assets, and I'm just reading some quick facts here, is estimated to be about $26.5 million. There's about $7.5 million in capital recommended to be spent between 2022 and 2031. In that capital, there are 5 culverts that are recommended for replacement. And we also note that the bridge condition index number is lagging behind many other rural municipalities, and it would behoove South Dundas for that number to improve. We provide a single page with 3 graphs that show some vital statistics for the municipal bridges. And the first slide points out that the 33 structures, they age, or they range in age from 4 years old to 96 years old. Although that 96-year age is, as we've found out very recently, not reliable. And in fact, some of the oldest structures on the inventory may be more like 150 years old. So, live and learn. The second graph or slide points out the typical sizes of the structures in South Dundas. And most of the structures, in fact, 19 of them are under 100 square meters in plan area. There's a further 12 that are between 100 and 200 square meters in plan area. And there are 2 structures that exceed 200 square meters in plan area. These are, for the most part, they're smaller structures. Typically, a structure that has more than 600 square meters of plan area is considered to be a large structure. Then the third slide that speaks to the statistics, it points out a couple of things. It speaks to the distribution of the deck area by age. And it's a little hard to wrap your head around, but the key takeaways from this is that about 5.5% of the structures in terms of plan area has been renewed in the last 20 years. So 5.5% has been renewed. Ideally, you should be renewing about 1% per year. So a better, more favorable number would be 20% renewal over the 20 years, over those first 20 years. The other thing that's of concern is that about 20% of the plan area is greater than 70 years of age. And so these are structures that are getting a little long in the tooth and will need to be retired at some point in the not too distant future. So I repeat that in the following slide, where I point out that ideally the renewal should be about 10% per decade, 1% per year is a favorable target in terms of investing in your infrastructure. And it does point out, and I hesitate to say this, but it needs to be understood that the reason that the requirement for investment is as high as it is that there's been not quite enough investment in the structure, the structure of the bridge and culvert infrastructure over the past many decades. And now it's coming to a point in time where the structures that have been, and I have to be careful how I choose my words, the structures that are getting a little tired and that have missed out on rehabilitation and missed out on capital reinvestment are suddenly coming due. And there is certainly a very, very significant requirement for investment over the next few years. I point out that there's about $9 million in capital expenditure required to renew the infrastructure over the next 20 years. There's a slide that shows the breakdown in recommended capital expenditure between 2022 and 2031. The blue columns are the bridges, the red columns are the culverts, and it just shows the expenditure profile. And the biggest expenditure is the replacement of the Taylor Road Bridge, which is recommended to be replaced next year. That's a $2 million expenditure, and that's clearly a headline grabber. And after that, the recommended capital expenditures are more modest, about $500,000 to $1 million per year. I provide, as part of the reporting, the estimated remaining service life for all of the structures. And I point out that in reviewing the estimated remaining service life, there are 15 structures, most of them being culverts, that have less than 20 years of estimated remaining service life. And so either they need to be replaced in the next 20 years or they need to receive some sort of a recapitalization, rehabilitation investment to extend the life of that particular structure. So I continue with the replacement the replacement recommendations moving forward. And again, like this graph that speaks to that, it's titled Replacement Cost by Decade, and it points out that in the next 10 years, there's about $5.5 million in replacement costs expected, followed in the next decade by about a little over $3 million in expenditures. And then there's a decade, 30 to 40 years hence, where almost $10 million in structure replacement will come due. This is not a bad profile. This is pretty typical of a lot of municipalities where about 30 to 50 years hence, there's going to be a very, very large need for investment in structure renewal. I provide a side-by-side comparison of what happens to the depreciated value of the structures. And I start here, we separate out the bridges from the culverts. And so this side-by-side comparison shows where or at what level the bridges are depreciated today, where they're forecast to be in 5, 10, 15, and 20-year increments. And my glasses aren't quite up to the task, but we're looking at an average depreciation for the bridge inventory. This is not talking about the culverts. We're talking about an average depreciation level of about 30% of the new value. So if it's your $100,000 Cadillac, it's worth $30,000 today. And that depreciated value is forecast to decline to about 10% of the new value in the absence of investment. And so this is pretty sobering. It's every municipality I speak to sees very, very similar numbers. What happens if you do not invest in your structure inventory? It just continues to decline in value. And not to say that a bridge that has no value has no utility to the municipality, but it is a very good indicator and measure of the health of your inventory and the need for investment. So the accompanying graph that shows the red, orange, yellow, and green bars, it shows what the depreciated value of the inventory will look like should you invest the recommended capital, which I identified earlier is about $7.5 million. And so if you can inject $7.5 million into the structure inventory, as in the timelines that is recommended, it's going to produce a very, very significant improvement in the overall depreciation levels of the bridge inventory. And so it's forecast that after 5 years, you'll be at a very, very healthy 50% depreciation level, which is a really, really good target number depending on what assumptions you make around the depreciation function. And then, of course, the capital program recommended is only over 10 years, and so things will start to fall off again after 10 years. There's a slide that looks at 5 different investment scenarios. And on that slide, there are 5 colored lines corresponding to not investing in the bridges. And again, remember, this is just the bridges, not the culverts. And so it shows the red line, in the absence of investment, the depreciation level of the bridges, where 100% is brand new, presently standing at about 30%, and is projected to fall off to about 9% over 20 years. The green line that has the sort of chevron appearance, that represents the investment, the recommended capital being invested exactly as recommended. And that's going to bring the value of the inventory back up to very close to 50% depreciation level, after which it falls off to about 36% or thereabouts. And then on that, I superimposed 3 additional investment scenarios, that being 3/4 of the replacement value, 1% of the replacement value, and 1.5% of the replacement value. And it's very clear that from a strategic investment standpoint, you need to be investing at least well over $250,000 per year in just the bridges to maintain them, or to start to restore them to a healthier level from the point of view of their depreciated value. And I provide just a couple of pictures of to reinforce the need for investment in the bridge inventory. And the first picture, of course, is the Taylor Road Bridge that you're all very familiar with, and a large perforation hole in one of the stringers of that bridge. And the second picture is the Nash Creek Bridge. This bridge is also an older structure in the inventory. The deck is in very poor condition. The abutment seats that hold the girders are deteriorating, and there's a noticeable sag. This particular structure, it could probably be replaced with a couple of large culverts, and certainly downstream there's 2 structures, or an SDG structure with 2 culverts, and we've got approval from South Nation Conservation Authority to replace the Hoassa Creek Bridge on County Road 18 with 2 concrete culverts. So this particular structure would be a favorable candidate for replacement with culverts as opposed to a replacement bridge. With all of this work, and I don't mention this in the presentation, but planning studies are really good value. You shouldn't just make a decision to replace a bridge or to rehabilitate a bridge without the benefit of some analysis ahead of time to see, okay, what is the best expenditure, doing some life cycle costing, etc. And but from the point of view of a simple biennial inspection, you only have limited time to assess and make recommendations, and you call what you think is going to be the most appropriate solution, but that's not necessarily the last word. So we've spoken about the bridges. Now we speak to the culverts, and I think we said at the beginning there were 21 culverts. So the breakdown of the culverts is such that 2/3 of the culverts are corrugated steel, your accordion-looking steel pipes that are pretty common everywhere. And then the other third are concrete culverts. And the concrete culverts, they typically last longer than a steel culvert, but they too have a life expectancy, and once they get it to be about 80 to 100 years old, they certainly are typically in need of some sort of attention and often replacement. So when we look at the depreciation of culverts, I speak in my summary report about straight line depreciation and parabolic depreciation. With culverts, it's just a very simple straight line depreciation. So if a culvert has a 40-year life, 20 years of at the half point in its life, it has lost approximately half of its value. If it starts to deteriorate because of scaling or excessive acid in the water, it may be depreciated more than half at the halfway point in its life. So the culvert inventory actually is looking pretty good. You're looking at, you're presently about 44% level of depreciation overall. Ideally, it should be like 50%, but all in all, the culvert inventory is in pretty good condition. In the absence of investment, the culvert inventory will depreciate to about 11-12% of its new value. And that depreciation forecast is based on considering whether it's a concrete culvert or a steel culvert, and also considers the actual condition of the structure. I provide, again, 5 scenarios for investment in the culvert inventory. We're recommending about $142,000 a year average over the next 20 years, but in reality it's more like $280,000 over the next 10 years. And if that expenditure is made, about $250,000, that will bring the depreciated value of the culvert inventory up to about 57% of the new value. So that would be a very, very favorable position to be in. In the absence of any investment, as I said, the depreciated value will fall off from 44% to about 12%, 13%. The ideal long-term investment in the culvert inventory is of the order of $135,000 to $150,000 a year. That's a good target budgeting number long-term. But the short term, the numbers are actually a little harsher. I provide a picture of the Flag Creek culvert. It actually doesn't look too bad in this particular picture. Unfortunately, that culvert is very subject to the fluctuations in water level in the St. Lawrence River. It was constructed around 1980. It's 40 plus years old. There's certainly concern about the condition of the culvert below the water level. We sometimes, when we assess a culvert, we have to look at the age and what we can see and make some judgments. Certainly this one bears additional investigation to make sure of its actual condition under the water. And perhaps it's going to be a low water year where it'll be more favorable conditions to assess it. But we're recommending that, at least from a budget perspective, that South Dundas be prepared to replace this culvert in the next few years. And interestingly, there are this particular culvert has 2 other companion culverts. They used to belong to the county, and then the county, I believe, transferred them back to South Dundas. There's one structure that's been drowned by the St. Lawrence Seaway. It's been continuously underwater for the past, since the 50s, and so it's really impossible to assess its condition. Fortunately, it's a concrete culvert, but we suspect it's at the end of its life, and certainly additional investigation is warranted, and it may well have another 20 years in it, but nobody really knows because nobody's provided the funding to hire a diver to go inside and have a closer look. But we have recommended that. And then getting close to wrapping up here, the Bridge Condition Index. This number is common to every municipality in Ontario, and it's a bit of a requirement in terms of doing what's called an Ontario Structure Inspection Manual inspection. The number is not a great number in terms of describing the condition of a bridge, but it's something that everybody understands. The MTO's goal is to maintain 80% of its structures with a condition index greater than 70. South Dundas is at 54.5% of its structures have an index greater than 70. So South Dundas, by that reckoning, is about 25% behind where the MTO likes to be. But I don't give a whole lot of stock to the BCI myself, but that's a long technical explanation I won't bore you with. I'm not too concerned about your BCI numbers. And then to summarize in terms of the financial aspects of the structure inventory, and to reiterate, the long-term investment for bridges should be at least $300,000 a year. For culverts, it should be at least $135,000 a year. But the capital needs that are really represent a backlog in terms of not having invested more historically. There's about $7.5 million in needs that are more or less immediate in the next 10 years. And so that's really more like $750,000 a year for the next 10. So long-term, the outlook is something like $435,000 a year. Short-term, next 10 years, more like $750,000 a year. And if South Dundas can find that in its budget, then the structure inventory is going to be in a considerably better, healthier state. And then the last slide is, again, a summary that breaks down the numbers between the bridges and culverts. The inventory value is $8.8 million for bridges and more than double that in terms of culverts. So the culverts are worth $17.6 million. The rate of depreciation is something I haven't spoken to yet, but the bridges are presently depreciating at a rate of about 1.05% per year. Culverts are depreciating much quicker at about 1.6% per year. The overall inventory is depreciating at a rate of 1.56% per year. And so if you take 1.56% against the full value of the inventory, that gives you an idea of how much needs to be spent to keep up with the depreciation. So in terms of the dollar value of depreciation, the bridges are losing their value at a rate of about $190,000 a year. The culverts are losing their value at a rate of about $140,000 a year, for a total of $230,000 or $250,000. The ideal capital investment for the next 20 years for bridges is around $300,000 a year. Culverts $300K a year, $300,000. Culverts $135,000 a year for a total of $435,000. And then the shorter term outlook is a much greater need. That's broken down as about $4.7 million expenditure on bridges and $2.8 million on culverts in the next 10 years approximately. That's my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Harold. Any comments from our Director of Transportation on this report before council talks?
No council comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I guess I will say this. I'd like to thank Harold before we go to council for his presentation. One thing I do note, and I know it's always a competitive thing that we go ask consultants or engineers to do these reports, the consistency of reports may be worth spending some extra money because we had someone else before, and I know we had another company for years and years and years when our former public works manager was here. But the same eyes, the same report, the same, maybe not necessarily you, but I mean your company with the same philosophy brings us a different report than what we had in the past. So, you know, the consistency sometimes is worth it. I know the county's really feel that's worth it. And I do remember in my previous term that I believe it was you and your company came to counties, told us we had to spend $2 to $3 million a year on bridges. And council did actually commit to doing that. And at the counties, we're spending that kind of money every year. But, you know, we have an inventory of significant amount of bridges, more so than even the culverts. And with the 401 and the railroad that we have to deal with. So lots of money. $750,000. I know our deputy treasurer's there, but an easy number is 10%. You know, the 435, I haven't got that. It's not 5. It's probably about 6 or 7. So, you know, it's big numbers. It's big numbers for our municipality. But we've done it in our urban areas. We spent $2.5 million on Ontario Street because of aging infrastructure. Now we have to start thinking about what we need to do in our rural areas. Bridge and culverts are extremely important. So are our roads, and we haven't done a lot, we've done some work there, but, I think we're probably just as far behind on some of those aspects too. And the challenge is it all takes money, and we haven't, every year we have more things to do and less money to do it unless we go to the street and ask for it, but that's always a challenging situation to do, so. With that, I'll turn it over to Councilor Wells. Any comments, questions, concerns?
Anyway, thanks for the presentation, Harold. Well, we can sit here, we know what has to be done. It's just, with this council here, it just seemed everything hit us all at once. Like we got just bridges, we got streets, water mains, everything. And it's something we'll have to, we have 1 year to figure it out, whether next council or whoever carries on with this, because like this is serious. Like not with just bridges and everything, like this whole municipality, our infrastructure that's been here for 70 some years and longer. There was no money set aside for the rainy days, and unfortunately we're going to get to a point where we got to do something. So either that or we lose our and all these bridges and culverts, there's some that we can eliminate, but you keep eliminating all your stuff and like your assets and stuff. It's just, it should have been taken care of years ago, and it's just something we have to sit down and figure out as a council and municipality how we're going to go about it. And this report really brings things to the surface here. So it is what it is. We just have to figure out how we're going to go about paying it, and hopefully through grants and other stuff we can get where. But I think this is very nice to have this report prior to us going in the budget. So maybe we can set up programs as this council and it's continue on, because we can sit here and we pay for all your stuff and we could do our due diligence. And next council, you could take 4 years, nothing's getting done. So it's like playing a poker game or whatever. It's just, anyways, I want to thank you again for the report, and like we got a lot of work to do here. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, quite a sobering little, I think we knew the shoe was gonna fall. The clocks went back on Saturday night. Too bad they didn't go back about 20 or 30 years, because that's basically what it amounts to. Nothing's been set aside. It's been overlooked. The mayor's already, alluded to the fact that, bridge reports were somewhat vague, or, I don't think they brought the urgency to the forefront, or was just ignored for years, for many, many terms of council, even before amalgamation. But the writing's on the wall. I'll be honest, I think there's, come budget time, I think we're gonna have to really, really look at, there's gonna be other areas that we're gonna just have to, we're gonna have to put more focus on bridge and culverts. And I think that, if anything, maybe we can, lobby through Ontario Good Roads see if there's any more funding the province would, settle down. Like you're saying, all the municipalities, everybody's sort of in the same boat. So it's getting to the point where on our limited resources of generating revenue, I think everybody's going to need help to finance, bridges and culvert replacements, that are, maybe this is why they want to have us do asset management. Too bad they wouldn't have done that. Where we are, like Councillor Wells has said, and we got to drive on and start pinching some coin out. Thank you. I think.
Councilor Lewis.
I'd like to thank you for the report, Harold. It was a good report. And as my fellow colleagues said, that, as the years has passed on, nobody's put any money away for culverts and bridges. And it's just, I think whenever it comes, with this budget coming up, this council's gonna have to do some serious thinking and maybe pull away from some of our other jobs to start funding money for culverts and bridges, because if not, we're going to be in a mess of trouble. We're almost there now. But I thank you for the report.
Mayor Gardner.
Thanks, Mayor Boyveltz. It's big numbers of items that have to get done, as the mayor said. We do have to recognize the fact we are a rural municipality, and we do have roads, bridges, and items that need to be looked at. The most striking for me of this whole thing was just the 5.5% investment renewal in the past 20 years. Sat at this table now for 3, and whether it's landfills or water towers or whatever, and now I guess we get to add bridges and culverts. I'm hoping that the residents will review this and see what we're up against and recognize that it can't keep being pushed down, because you can't get away from it. You can't ignore it. You can't get away from it. And it is going to have to be dealt with. It may not be something that we can completely solve, but I'm willing to, even though it's a big scary number, I'm willing to take a crack at it. But yeah, it's very, I guess we'll just add it to the pile.
Well, I agree with council. Excellent report. Big challenges for South Dundas, and I agree, Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the residents of South Dundas have to read this very soberingly, and it's not something we want to do. However, if we don't take this, some council has to take this on and start to drive, and once you start to drive, you'll get to where you need to go. And this is only one part of what we do. We have the water and sewer system in Morrisburg, Iroquois is aging. We know how that implicates ourselves on where we have to spend dollars. Mainly government grants, the OSIP grant and the federal gas tax. We put it to that system, then we don't have that money to spend on our roads and bridges, and that's one of our challenges. Interesting to see that there's 4 bridges on the former road, Connolly Road 4, that are on this list. I do know we do have an agreement with the counties, but it's still going to cost, they'll chip in a bit. It's unfortunate. I think that the agreement should have been a little bit more solider at that time, and I think the county should have been responsible for all those 4 structures at that time. That would have been my approach at the time, but they are, I think it ranges from 30 to 10% on all of them if we take Harold's timelines into account, and I know that Director of Transportation at the county certainly respects his opinion on bridges and culverts. What I will throw on the table, and something I think that the people of South Dundas have to consider, and council has to seriously consider, is that we have a dedicated infrastructure tax or levy that is strictly spent on roads and bridges and water and sewer or whatever. Well, actually, it has to be roads and bridges. It can't be water and sewer because you can't do that. It's separately rated. But, if you took the easy number right now, it's 10% over 10 years to get 700, get that magic number that we need to do the next 10 years. And then after that, it's 6% on top of what we're already charging. But if we don't, sure, we can shuffle the deck around. But trouble, if we shuffle the deck around, then all of a sudden, where we shuffled it away 2 or 3 years down the road, our facilities all of a sudden need this big pile of money, and another engineering consultant firm's gonna be standing there and say, well, this is what you didn't do to your facilities, now you're behind on that, now what are you gonna do again? It's challenging, I won't deny that, and maybe this is something we need to put on our Speak Your Mind South Dundas website and say, you know, what do you think? You know, what, should we charge more? Should we do, we can't ignore the bridges, it's impossible, like, the only other possibility is shutting down all the roads that have all these major structures on it. There's no logic to it. It doesn't make any sense. I will admit, some of the old structures are in pretty good shape. I drove over the Barclay Road Bridge many times in the last 2 days, you know, and that's an old structure too that's, you know, managed fairly well. But, you know, Barclay Road and the old Saving Street and Fropeburn, County Road 18, where at Hosick, and they're all the same type of structure. So, you know, they manage quite well. We have some nice new ones that aren't too bad. Plots, you know, there's an example, the Plant Bridge on Snowbird, used by the Thurlers exclusively. No disrespect to them at all, but if we don't take care of that bridge, that was, you know, it's one of our newest bridges. Some council down the road is going to say, why didn't they spend some dollars to fix the things we needed to fix to keep up with what's not really, you know, easy. The easy fixes are the ones you got to do. It's just like changing your oil in your car, changing tires. You got to do that kind of stuff. If you don't do it, you're replacing the engine 100,000 K instead of just spending money on oil. So I think that's something we need to seriously consider. I'm not saying it's palatable or anything, and maybe we have to start lower, but that's the numbers we need for the next number of years. So I think that's something, it's a challenge out to council, challenge out to our residents, that it's not something easy to do, but it's got to be done. Any further comments from any members of council on this? Anything further, Harold?
Nothing that comes to mind immediately.
Okay.
But, thank you for your attention.
Once again, thank you for your doing your report, the presentation. We'll wait any kind of plans that come from the Director of Transportation on what we're going to be doing with this report and what we need to spend money on. In the immediate future is the easy one, the Taylor Road Bridge, but it's easy to look 1 year, but I think we need to look at least the next 5 to 10 year. This is the outline. Ignoring is not a smart thing to do. So once again, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll now go into action requests. First one's ES 2021-19 Recreation Master Plan Tender.
Moved by Councillor Wells, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that Council accept report ES 2021-19 to award the development of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan to Monteith Brown Planning Consultants for the price of $74,620 plus HST.
Austin, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The report you have in front of you this evening is regarding the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. The RFP closed on October 29th with a total of 5 submissions. All submissions were evaluated by a 3-person panel on their methodology, team experience, previous work, fees and expenses, as well as their overall quality proposal. Of the 5, Monteith Brown Planning Consultants scored the highest as their proposal supported the improvement and growth of recreational opportunities in South Dundas over the next 10 years for both residents and tourists. Just to provide council a little more information on Monteith Brown, the firm has completed 400 recreational studies since their inception in 1977. Recently, they completed a plan for the municipality of North Grenville as well as the city of Cornwall, and also a campground study for the township of Selwyn. Staff have reached out and spoke to North Grenville and Cornwall regarding their experience with the firm, as well as their quality of their final report they submitted to the municipalities. Both had nothing but good things to say, and noting that Monteith spent an exceptional amount of time on public consultation, as well as discussions with staff and council throughout the development process of their plan. They also noted that they both received an extremely high amount of participation from the residents during their public consultations and surveys, and that the surveys Monteith Brown provided for the residents was very easy to use for everyone in the community, so they received a lot more participation than they usually would. In regards to the final report, both were extremely pleased and noted that they met all the required timelines and provided them with an easy plan to follow for the next 10 years, while also providing realistic goals and external funding opportunities for each to pursue. And if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Gardner, comments, questions, concerns?
Thanks, Mayor Buggles. Austin, in your conversation with the city of Cornwall and the other one, how quickly were they able to implement the recommendations from the consultant's report? Like, have they started implementing this stuff, or is it fairly new? Like, was it?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, they have started. The report that they submitted to Cornwall as well as North Grenville was for the next 10 years, so they were able to provide goals and guidelines and objectives to obtain in year 1. So they have already started.
And they were able to start, like, it was realistic to the climate kind of
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
Okay, because you just heard about the bridge report, right? So
Yeah.
don't have any money for recreation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lewis,
No, I have no questions on this.
Councilor Mellon,
No, it's, after seeing that bridge report, I'm about
Yeah,
ready to
well.
start pulling plugs. Drive on.
Councilor Wells.
Back when we started this, I was against it to start with, and I still am. I just hope down the road that we're spending $75,000 that we're going to see at the end, because before our time we had the big drawings. I don't know what was spent. Maybe the mayor could talk to that, but what was spent on the waterfront plan thing that never really used, and I just want to hope this doesn't, we get, and it sits up there, it's not going to be good, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully money is being spent well. Thank you.
Okay, I will admit it's a lot of money. We haven't done one though since 2006 specifically for recreation. So that was before my time on our first council that I sat on. I think we spent $50,000 on our strat plan in 2011 or 2012, somewhere around that many. So dollars, yeah. It's a lot of money, but then I go look at the bids and they're all in that range. So that tells me that, that's where what we expect is going to cost. I did run on doing a new rec master plan because I think the old A was old, and B, our demographic is totally different, and we have to listen to the people on recreation instead of council sitting here. So, well, let's do this for them, let's do this, and nobody shows up, or somebody else has a great idea and we're not ready to implement it. So I think having a real good consultation process, and I'll probably will admit that if there's any holes as we go along, that any member of council at least point them out, because we have demographics of all sizes, we have communicators of all kind of ranges, so hopefully we can get as many people as we can to tell us what they'd like to see for recreation in South Dundas. I will say this, I had to write down this sticky note. You got it completed by September 1st. I would like to see that accelerated, and the reason being is that it is an election year next year, and as much politics shouldn't play a role in this, it may. And if it doesn't come back to council till after a certain date, we can enact it, and you can talk to the clerk of what the drop dead date should be. I know that might be a push, but if you allow it to go to the next council, you may just land up it being going out the door, and then you've taken 75 grand that you really didn't want to spend. So that's my political advice to you for this one. I think should have been started earlier. Maybe a year earlier would have been more ideal, but we didn't put the budget aside for it. So that's my only caveat. Other than that, I'm tell them we're ready to start anytime. Once we pass the motion, of course. Go ahead.
Just a quick add-on, in the residents I've spoken to, they were really excited about the sports dome. I've had lots of people asking me where that is, so hopefully that will be part of the discussion, especially around funding or feasibility, or even making that but proposal better. Hopefully they'll have something to say on that, so we'd have a shovel-ready document.
Any other further comments from council? Seeing none, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any. Motion carries. Thank you, Austin. Yes. Okay, next one is PE 2021-12 Sumac Point.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Wells, that council accepts report PE 2021-12 to support the plan of subdivision application number 01 SDS 2020 based on the conditions of approval described in Schedule A as attached, and further, that these conditions be forwarded to the United Counties of SD&G and the applicant representing the municipality's formal comments on the proposal.
Peter, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds and Council. As Council is aware, this is a proposal for a 3-lot plan of subdivision on Lakeshore Drive and Dr. Stevens Drive, just east of Iroquois. A public meeting, or the application was circulated, and we had a public meeting earlier this fall to get comments from residents. So in our report, we speak to the provincial policy statement and the county official plan. Both of those support residential development, including rural recreational development along the shoreline, subject to technical studies that are usually submitted with an application. The project meets the Municipality of South Dundas zoning bylaw for residential waterfront development. In the report, we also speak to the lot configuration, size, servicing on private well and septic. There's a stormwater management, so there'll be a drainage easement in favor of the municipality, along with sediment and erosion control, so that from any development, there won't be a runoff, or will be controls from runoff going into the St. Lawrence River. There's also an environmental impact statement and geotechnical report. In that report, there's certain requirements for setbacks both from the water's edge and from top of slope. So one of the conditions of approval would be that they submit detailed site plans showing all these setbacks, the building envelope, well and septic. But all of these have been reviewed by South Nation, and they do support in principle, subject to the detailed studies as a condition. One of the issues we also heard at the public meeting was frontage and access from Lakeshore Drive and Dr. Stevens Drive. As council is aware, Dr. Stevens Drive is on private property, but it's been maintained by the municipality and is considered a public road. One of the conditions of approval would be that it gets surveyed, so that in the future, if the municipality wishes to purchase the land and get full title, it would be able to do that in a quick manner. I've also shared this condition with the landowner, and they requested that they be given a copy of the survey as well, the adjacent landowner, and they were satisfied with the condition. There's also typically a requirement for parkland. In this case, I'd recommend that it would be 5% cash in lieu that could be contributed towards other parks, as there's not enough room for a large park, but there are some that the future residents could travel to. And in terms of the comments received, generally we believe those can be addressed through the conditions of draft approval. So we're recommending that council approve these as conditions of approval, and then we'll go to back to the counties for a final decision once received.
Okay, thank you. I'll go around council, comments, questions, concerns. Councillor Wells, start please.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I went through everything. I love to see new construction come in the municipality. There's a lot going on Lakeshore Drive. It seems everything's being met, so My one question was about the one in the public meeting about the road, in which you already answered that for me there. So I think it's great. Like, it's bringing more families into the community, tax dollars, which we need. So I'm for this.
Councilor Mellon?
I agree with, the whole concept here, it's a residential area, the parkland, the environmental concerns or stormwater management, everything I think is taken care of. And then I get to access to the subdivision. And as far as I'm concerned, that's where the brakes should be coming screaming on real fast. I have a real problem with condition of draft approval will include the survey at Dr. Stevens Drive so the title could be transferred to the municipality at a future date. If that don't put a brake on things, I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, we don't own the road right now. The road's not in our title, so I don't know how we could actually access or grant access, even if down the road we get the road in our, under title, and, make an official road of South Dundas. As far as I'm concerned, until that road is officially our road and not on private property, I don't want to see anywhere in there where it says so the title could be transferred. That to me sends up the biggest red flag of all, and that has to be dealt with as far as I'm concerned before I would support this. Everything else I agree with, great residential, parkland, no new families, but we have to look after that first as far as I'm concerned before I would support it.
Any comments?
Yes, Mayor Byvelds, I can definitely speak to that. So that was something when the application was first submitted that we at the counties and at the municipality were also concerned with. So it was something that we talked with our lawyer about whether this was indeed public or private. And talking to the solicitor, his opinion was really that this is a public highway. And there are other examples throughout the counties and in other municipalities where you might have a forced road that didn't follow the actual road allowance. And actually I can think of two other severances we've done this year where one of the conditions was that they had to survey the road and deed it to municipality, one in South Dundas, and there was one on a curved road in South Dundas and one in South Stormont as well. So I agree completely that that's definitely a concern, but it was one that we spoke with the solicitor before we circulated the application. So it was with the counties for several months before we even would say it was a complete application. So the municipality is not required to purchase the land. It is a public road, and there would be a few examples probably in South Dundas and many more if you're in cottage country and areas where the roads go around natural features. But I would say it's unusual, but it does happen in other places, including sometimes in South Dundas where the road might have curved, but they never ended up purchasing the property. So totally share the concerns, and we spoke with staff and the solicitor as well before circulating. But in terms of this, we believe that the condition would allow the municipality to potentially negotiate a future purchase. But based on talking to the solicitor and my own experience in other projects, sometimes you find those title issues and they're fixed over time when there's money for it or when a development proposal comes forward. And like I said, there's a couple examples even in severances that we asked for that as a condition as well. So I definitely appreciate your point, but I believe through that condition we can set up so the municipality can take formal title either way under the Municipal Act, because the road was maintained by municipality prior to 2001 when the Municipal Act had changed. It is considered a public road and covered under those standards.
Councilor
Still
Mellon,
don't
go
agree
ahead.
with it. If whoever thinks they own that road may not just want to, maybe they will, maybe it would all, come out in the wash and be nice, but I don't, like I said, Mayor Byvel's, until we have, as far as I'm concerned, until we have a firm commitment that that road could be willingly transferred to the municipality under whatever conditions, then as far as I'm concerned, I'm not gonna support it that way.
Okay. Have you had, Peter, conversations with the current owners of that roadway?
Yes, we've met internally, staff with the Crookshank family, and also with the, before the report, before a decision was made, we sent a copy of the report to say, here's what the proposed conditions are. Would you be in favor of that? And I spoke with one of the family members today and went over the report and conditions, and they were satisfied just with a tweak to the one condition that they could review the survey that was completed before any final decision was made. But they, I think, without getting something in writing at this time, but at least they're willing to work with the municipality and kind of fix that. And we've had several meetings and discussions with them. But again, because it's considered a public highway, it is a municipal road, but they were working towards the title fix as well.
Okay. Still, I can't disagree with Councillor Mellon. It could be a sticky issue, and it may hold up. It may be one of those things that could make a drawn out process if it's not, fixed one way or the other. And as I told you before, I have no desire for South Dundas to pay dollars to buy that piece of property. So someone has to figure it out and give us the road and drive on. I like the idea that the new owners will have to survey it out and the Crookshanks have to do their own due diligence, but fully understand that it is a public road. I've read enough stuff. In fact, I just picked up a recent old report we had as council at initiation day in South Dormont that mentioned about roads, and if municipality actually looked after a road, or whether public or private, we tend to own it, and that's so. Anyway, I think that the issue of who owns the road and how that's all going to work out must be finalized, I think, before we really go on and allow the other company to go on and build. And I think they're going to access it, because all it takes is one roadblock and we'll be all in court, and we don't really need all that headache either. I think cleaning it up would probably be a smart thing to do, one way or the other. So I don't disagree. Like, you both make good points, but looking down the road, I don't want us to be in a mess and spending a whole bunch of legal dollars just because we didn't own the road and nobody wanted to let them across, and we all know how that works. So I don't think title insurance is going to work.
That was one of my biggest concerns too when I read the report. It could be pretty sticky, but if everybody agrees to it, I have no problem, but I'd like to see that solved first. And my second question, I'm going to look over here. Percentage for parkland, is 5% reasonable?
Yeah, 5%.
Is that the gold number?
Through you, Mayor, it's through the Planning Act, it's 5%.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is the number.
I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Yeah, looking at it, I agree that needs to be dealt with, because when you look at lot 1, lot 2, in all likelihood, their driveways are going to come out on the Dr. Stevens Drive, and I don't think it's a smart idea to not fix that before moving ahead. You can't put that genie back in the bottle, and I think that the concern has been raised. It was raised in the public meeting, and I appreciate the conversations you've had, Peter, with the Crookshanks, but I think we need something formal, because things can change in a heartbeat. I don't see how that would be a smart move to approve it at this point.
Okay. I lean that way too, Peter. Like, I think that issue needs to be resolved completely, and then it absolve, then at least the proponents have somewhere to go for sure. And I don't think, do they have a for sure right now?
Based on our discussions with the municipal solicitor, and it was the same gentleman that presented at South Stormont before, he advised both the municipality and the county to process the application because it was a public road which they had the right to access.
Okay,
So
but-
if council wants, we could also look to get something in writing from the lawyer as well. I believe it was just on the phone that.
Well,
that we
actually,
spoke
I don't
with them
want it from the
about.
lawyer. I want the Crookshanks to be involved and resolve this issue one way or the other, because lawyers can say what they want. It's judges that make the decision in the end, and in between time, lawyers make money. And if we can resolve this one way or the other with the Crookshanks, because I've heard, you know, that technically that's a county road allowance, right? But our road allowance legally is only 66, so there's a strip of land that technically we can't really even fight for. If Crookshanks own it, that's their way of saying, you ain't gonna come across our property line, and I've heard that story. So I think we need to resolve that issue. And I think once that's resolved one way or the other, then I think we're all game on getting this there. But the last thing we want is to let this go, and then all of a sudden, the barriers are up, and everybody know, and then we say, well, we're not looking after the road anymore, and then all those residents say, well, you looked after forever. It just, we need to clean it up, one way or the other. And I'm not blaming you, it's just, it's that whole circle that we didn't know about, that now the genie's out of the bottle, let's figure it out and see what we can make it. I have no problem taking the road allowance over. I don't, it is what it is. It's been there forever. It's the old Highway 2 from way back when. However, it's in private ownership, and I think those private owners have the right to say something until it's ours. Go ahead.
One suggestion I'd have, Mr. Mayor, is that we would tweak that condition and it would be only clearable by the municipality of South Dundas, that South Dundas is satisfied that there's clear title established for the road. So there would be a little bit more, not just surveying, but that some type of clear title would be established as well. I think the challenge with looking at it now is that if it's given conditional approval, then there's an incentive for the developer to complete all those surveys and studies and get things going. If it's deferred and dealt with at a later date, one challenge would be that they could appeal for lack of a decision within the 120 days, and the other challenge would be, negotiation could go to a standstill. But I do think this is an important issue, so as an alternative to deferring it, I could also revise that condition so that the municipality wouldn't sign off on the subdivision, because there's a lot of conditions that would be South Dundas conditions until you're satisfied with the status of the title of the road. So there's another kind of check down the road. They can't get final approval and they can't register the lots until South Dundas is satisfied that the proper arrangements have been made with the landowner and the municipality.
Okay, I think that makes some logical sense. The owners must have to understand that the property they bought did have municipal access on Lakeshore Drive. They are subdividing it into an area that isn't a true municipal access, and I think it's their responsibility, if they want to develop the land and make all the dollars that come along with it, that access is that road allowance comes to South Dundas in a fair and constructive way before they're allowed to do it. And I think your solution does have some sense to it, that we can, put it as a condition that the road becomes ours, but one way or the other. Go ahead, Councillor Wells.
Oh, yeah, I agree with Peter on, we should give them a condition so these developers can keep going. My question is, if they're, like the mayor was saying, owners, well, the way I'm understanding, there's only one owner to that portion of Dr. Stevens. So what happens with, Dr. Stevens Drive. So what happens with the other residents down that road? it's in the same scenario where they're going down a road and they're crossing a private piece of property, and which the current owner is allowing, and now we're saying the current owner just says he's good with that. I think it should be good for this developer too, because there's like, there's 5 residents down there now that has the same access, so we're going against things that are being done already. It's a public road. Like the solicitor's saying, whether it's judge or not, Mayor, but it's being done right now, so I think as long as they get a condition and at the end where we're all satisfied, but I think we shouldn't put too many roadblocks up for people, but, because like I said, it's being done now, going across private property. There's 5 residents there, so all it is adding 2 residents to the thing that's going across there right now, so. But I would be in favor of the conditional till there's a lot of hoops before it gets to someone digging a basement there.
Council Melton.
I can agree with the conditions. Will there be enough bite or conditions to the conditions to make sure that we have our I's dotted and T's crossed? You know, will there be, nothing will happen until those conditions are met?
That's correct, Councillor Mellon. So one challenge or one thing that'll come back to council is the subdivision agreement. So at that time, hopefully we'd be able to report progress and on the agreement, and the other part, and whether you know, the survey and that title searching has taken place. And the other part is that the township or the municipal staff would need to sign off on the condition. So in terms of the wording, I'll work with Shannon and his team to get something that makes sense for what council's asking for and a realistic condition, but it'll be something that municipal staff will need to review as well, and will come back to council as part of the subdivision agreement.
And, you know, Councillor Wells has a point, but the fact of the matter is, if the ownership of that land doesn't get transferred to us, then the fact of the matter is, they can let whoever they want across there, but if they don't want, and I don't want to, like the Mayor says, I don't want to get into a situation where we're, you know, we got to defend one or not defend the other. I think, you know, now that the problem has been brought to our attention, it would be silly for us not to get this finalized and straightened out. And, you know, before this, I didn't know that wasn't, Dr. Stevens wasn't our road until, you know, this came to light. I didn't know that, so now that we do, I think it's only prudent that we make sure that we get it sorted out, not only for this new 3 residents that hopefully will go up there, but for those other homeowners that Councillor Wells has alluded to. If something went down the road and things went sour and somebody didn't like somebody, and they could say, oh, I don't want you to go down here, you know, this is mine, no, you stay out of here. And that's a very real possibility. I've seen it. And we don't want to go down that road. We want to, let's clean it up now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember that public meeting, and I think there were definitely some concerns raised. I think that it wasn't all hunky-dory. So I think that we need to follow up. I think it'd be different if everyone was like, yeah, everything's great, but there were some definite concerns, and I hear what Councillor Wells is saying as far as there's already residents there, but I hate putting roadblocks in, but I also hate doing something halfway and then wishing that I had done it the other way. So I don't think it's, I mean, timelines for this, Peter, like what do you think the timeline would look like to kind of clean this up?
I think based on our meetings with the owners of the land the road's on so far, it's been very productive, and I think there's a benefit to everyone on the road to have clear title as well.
Yeah.
In addition to the developers for the subdivision. So I think right now, both the owners of the road and the developers are kind of looking to find a solution in terms of all of our discussions so far. So I think if I can work with your staff to clean up that condition, maybe put it a little tighter so it meets what council's looking for, we would issue the draft approval and then work with the developer and the landowners to make sure that the concerns raised by council.
It's not really a roadblock, it's more of a pause and trying to get it right the first time, right?
Yeah, and sorry,
Go ahead.
Mayor Byveld's just that, again, the municipality would need to be satisfied. So you, as council, would have that ability to make sure that what we've done and what we've negotiated works for council as well.
Okay, good to hear that. I think, I'm not disagreeing with Councillor Wells, like he does make some valid points that the other residents are already using that road and we're kind of blocking it for two new ones, but if title to that land was changed tomorrow and the Crookshanks just sold it, there'll be a lot of grief on that area because they have no access to anything if that landowner decides that it's my road and I can do what I want with it. And I think this is the opportunity to clean it up. Let's do so. Madam Clerk, how do we recognize that in the motion? Is there anything we need to add or?
Could we add perhaps based on the conditions as amended?
Okay.
Will that work, Peter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is the Deputy Mayor and Councilor Wells good with that? You were the movers and seconders.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, so we're not deferring it, we're just doing a condition that we're moving
Yeah,
forward.
we're just adding that condition on. We're not here to roadblock it, we just want to clean it up. This is the opportunity.
And at the end of the day, we're cleaning up for 5 other residents.
That's correct.
So,
Yeah,
but just as long as we're not putting a thing and we're going straight through, so I'm good with it.
okay. All good? Okay, do you want to reread it again, so, just for official record, please?
The council accepts report PE 2021-12 to support plan of subdivision application number 01 SDS 2020 based on the conditions of approval as amended described in Schedule A as attached, and further, that these conditions be forwarded to the United Counties of SD&G and the applicant, representing the municipality's formal comments on the proposal.
Okay, anything further on this? Hearing none, all in motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Next one is action request FS 2021-05, section 357, tax write-offs.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that council accept report FS 2021-05 to approve the municipal tax write-offs in the amount of $335.45 according to the property classes as per the attached.
Sean, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report you have in front of you tonight is to write off taxes as a result of Section 357 applications. The amount to be written off is $335.45, which is the municipal portion only. The write-off amount for the education and the upper tier amounts will be included in the 2021 year-end reconciliations. The applications were received, the applications received were submitted for a class change for commercial to residential, and the others were for residential demolitions. If you have any
Okay.
questions, I can help you.
Any comments, questions, concerns from council on this? Councilor Mellon?
Just a quick question, Sean, if you could enlighten me on the first one, the assessment, there's no assessed value on that first one?
The, through the chair to Councillor Mellon, there's no assessment shown because it's just a class change. There's no change in the assessment. So it's just moving from commercial to residential.
Oh.
It's a different tax bracket.
Hey,
It's a different tax bracket.
okay,
The residential rate is substantially lower than the commercial rate, and it's just.
where the other ones were just a demolition on the same class?
It's a reduction, it's a reduction of the assessment.
Gotcha, drive on.
Anything further from any member, council? Seeing none, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed, if any, motion carries. Thanks, Sean. bylaws. First one, 2021-114, Fisheries and Oceans Agreements.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Wells, that bylaw number 2021-114, being a bylaw to extend 2 lease agreements with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, represented by the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This bylaw is to extend the present lease agreement with Fisheries and Oceans for the navigational aids at the Marina and Golf Course in Iroquois for 5 years, an extended 5 years.
Okay, any comments, questions, concerns on this? Seeing none, I'll order the motion. Those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Next one is 2021-115, Memorial Bench and Tree Policy.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2021-115, being a bylaw to authorize policy number 3-20, Memorial Bench and Tree, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Go ahead.
We were approached by the Iroquois Waterfront Committee to make some changes to the bench policy, and we've changed 3 things in the policy. The first one was section 1.3, and that was added to enable the removal of the plaque if it becomes known that the person's character did not align with the community interest. The second section, 1.5, was added to ensure the municipality owned the property, either the bench, tree, or plaque, once it was purchased and placed. And section 3 outlines that the donor pays on advance and receives a donation receipt for everything except the plaque, which we will return in the event that they wish to have it returned.
That's it? Okay, so as the clerk has alluded to, these are some of the items that the Iroquois Waterfront Committee noted, and I asked the clerk to update our policy in that regard. I think just there's some common sense. I noticed that we're not changing it to 20 years, but it's 10 plus 10, so it's not like it's will die in 20 years anyway. So, any comments, questions, concerns, Deputy Mayor Gardner?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm not sure if this is appropriate. I know later on I've brought forward the minutes from the Morseburg Waterfront Committee. They have had a family approach them to place a bench, memory bench to Hannah in the Morseburg Park. And I just want to make sure before we approve this that there's nothing in here that would stop us from approving that request.
Comments?
I don't see any reason why you can't approve that.
Okay, because I know there's been a lot of talk about benches and what they look like. The suggested bench will completely be different than what's been discussed.
Just my comment to this is a general
Okay.
policy for South Dundas. If something special like you are suggesting comes along and it's forwarded to us, we as council can certainly override what's in here to add that. It's a pleasure of council. Staff cannot. Staff go by this, so council must approve any kind of changes that are outside these boundaries.
I thought it was important for the discussion, so we don't approve
Well,
this and then
that's
not
true. I
explain.
understand where
Yeah.
you're coming from. Well, everybody will say, well, we just passed the bench policy, now we're changing it
Yeah,
already. And
yeah,
I don't
so-
think, I think yours is, it's unique. I wouldn't
Yes.
call it maybe a one-off, but it's a unique
Yes.
feature. And if council feels it's something that they would circumvent the bench policy, that's council's discretion. As I said before, this policy is from council to staff to follow.
Okay.
So I
Just-
think some of the tweaks were just some things that had to be cleaned up because someone noticed them, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and that was my only concern. I recognize it, but I just wanted to make sure that if people are watching, they understand that
Yeah.
we're able to do that.
Shannon?
Through you, Mayor. So actually, section 8 of the policy does indicate that staff will report back to council on other matters as deemed appropriate. So that would just speak to that if there's another issue that didn't fall within the policy.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, all heard the motion. Those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. (2021-116) Playground Tender Agreement.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that bylaw number 2021-116 being a bylaw to execute an agreement with playground planners for the design, supply, and installation of playground equipment at the South Williamsburg Recreational Park be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Austin?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the agreement with playground planners for the design, supply, and installation of playground equipment at Riverside Park or South Williamsburg Recreation Park. As discussed at the last council meeting, given their proposal. And if council has any questions, I can answer them at this time.
We thank you for the artist's rendition of the proposed playground. I think that needs to be back in the previous report. This was noted. Deputy Mayor, hands up.
So now I've seen a picture of it. Sorry, Austin, but I have a couple of comments. Just what's your stance on accessibility of the play structures? So having play structures that are accessible within the municipality. Have we, is this one, I can't tell if the backslide is accessible. Is it, like, are there?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, with the budget for this project and given accessibility components being more expensive, we did try to replace like for like. So the idea was to replace the play structure in Riverside with a similar style structure. We are keeping the swing set that's there. So when that, because it's not come to the end of its service life. So when that does come, then we can replace it with an accessible swing set similar to what we have in Haldane Park.
Okay, I think it's important, and maybe this will be part of the recreational master plan, I'm not sure. So if you had a parent that brought a child that had mobility requirements, we're basically telling the parents that they're gonna look at their kid and say, you can only swing. You can't use the play structure. So I think if, and I'm not saying that, I think we need to identify and have the location so the parents have the option to take their kids. And it can be quite tricky to convince a kid that they can't go on a play structure. Like, it's just not fair. So the other comment I have is I understand like for like and the budget being somewhat restrictive. I also, as someone who's looked through, not as many as Councillor Lewis, but looked through some catalogs, we can get fairly creative, and I've noticed even the schools are spending the extra time in picking the play structure. So maybe not for this park, it's a little small, but maybe some considerations moving forward. But for me, the accessibility piece is huge.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, the Parks and Rec Master Plan, it will, in discussion with North Grenville and City of Cornwall, they did mention that Monteith Brown provided a lot of accessibility upgrades and suggestions to their parks, amenities, and so on.
Okay, perfect.
Councillor Lewis?
I know where the deputy mayor is coming from, but I also know the price of the equipment. And it was $25,000 budget, for somebody with a disability. You most could have almost doubled that. So, and Riverside or South Williamsburg is a very small park, so I don't have an issue with this whatsoever. Maybe a bigger park would be something to look at, but no, I think what you ordered is just right to the T for South Williamsburg Park.
Any comments, Councillor Mellon?
Not really. I mean, some good points have been made. Hopefully the rec master plan will maybe address this, and maybe we need to have a line item, if you will, for accessibility in our playground structures and location of those playground structures. But I'm good with this.
Councillor Wells, any comments?
I have no comments, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think those comments about accessibility are fair, and perhaps where the rec plan will show that we don't need them everywhere, but strategically located within South Dundas is probably what we need, because most The challenge with most of our structure is that you need to drive to them. Not too many people live close to them. But they are important. My granddaughters love play structures. In fact, they have 1, 2, 3, 4 within easy walking distance of where they live. So, you know, we think we have too many, but there's, 4, and 1 is brand new. And they don't call them names, they just go by what color the slide is. So these are blue slides. Madam Clerk?
If I may add, Mr. Mayor, the Accessibility Committee is, for the future, we are supposed to meet with that committee when we replace playground equipment or other things, when we're adding or subtracting. So David's helping me with the accessibility report this year, and he's going to take that over. So going forward, we'll probably have the Accessibility Committee look at some of these things.
And that's a very fair job or comment for the committee. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I would add to, it's not just accessibility for the kids. Adults need to be able to take their kids to the park and not have too much. I know anytime Reagan, when she was little, went up on that in the blue play structure at Earl Baker, I almost had a heart attack. So I can only imagine if you're a parent with mobility issues, trying to get under that big thing as your heart is stopping. So I think that's important too. And grandparents too, right? Like you want the grandparents to be able to go to the parks with their grandkids.
That's right. You have to catch them when they come down the slide.
Exactly.
Especially if they're too fast. Anything comments further? Seeing none, all ordered motion, those in favor. Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thanks, Austin. Okay, 2021-116, nope, that's gone. 2021-117, fuel lock agreement.
Moved by Councillor Wells, second by Councillor Lewis, that bylaw number 2021-117, being a bylaw to execute a 3-year fuel cost agreement with Parkland Industries Limited for the purchase of colored diesel, clear diesel, and regular gas, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Jeff, welcome again.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So during the regular council meeting on June 28th, staff presented a report, TS 2021-07, outlining the benefits of installing a card lock fuel system at our 2 public works yards, one at Irene Road, presently known as the Matilda Garage, and one at on Stevens Road, presently known as our Williamsburg shop. So this is just to finalize to execute a 3-year agreement with Ultramar Fuels to proceed with the fuel agreement. I can answer any questions which you have at this time.
Okay, quick question, Jeff. Are the pads and tanks and everything installed, ready to roll?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the cement pads have been poured, and presently the Matilda Garage in Iroquois is up and running. We're using our Public Works Roads Department right now as the guinea pigs, if you want to call it that, to get all the hiccups and the bubbles out. We're waiting a cleared or colored diesel tank swap at Williamsburg, and then once that's completed, then we will hook up the GIR card lock system, and we'll be ready to go. Presently, right now at Williamsburg, the clear diesel tank and the regular gas is operable, and we are using, like I said, our Public Works employees to get the hiccups out of it. And then we're still on schedule for our December 1st full switch over, so that all municipal employees and vehicles can fuel at Iroquois and Williamsburg.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions, sir? Deputy Mayor Gardner.
I think I might have raised this, but I can't remember. Is there policies and procedures associated with the use of this system, and what an auditing process, if you will, to make sure it's used properly?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I have I believe, finalized a fuel procedure, like a standard operating procedure for fueling. I think I've got the main parts of what I need to have in it. I've reached out to local municipalities in the city of Ottawa for what they present. So I think I'm there, and I'm ready to pass it on to Shannon to pass his eyes over it. And if he's happy with what I present to him, Then I'll do training with each respective department, and bring them out to a site, because both sites are the same, and walk them through the fueling procedure.
So how does it work? Is there a code associated, like a code assigned to each individual staff?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, so there's a key fob that's assigned to the vehicle,
Okay.
which is all the information for the vehicle.
Okay.
And then each employee is issued a password, a passcode with letters and numbers. And when they go up to the machine, they select their pump, then they identify through their passcode, employee passcode, and then that lets us know who's fueling.
Yeah.
And then you swipe your key fob in front of the machine, and that lets the computer know what vehicle is being fueled. And they can only fuel with a certain fuel that's already been identified through our fleet mechanic. So if it's only a gas vehicle, they can only turn on the gas pump. So we can't do any of that crossing. And then fuel away. I then receive on my phone and on my computer the vehicle, who fueled, and how many liters they fueled, so that at the end of the month, I can give an Excel spreadsheet to our finance department, and then they'll know where kind of liters go and what department and what vehicles are using the fuel.
That's perfect. And final question with fob, will it work multiple times in one day for the vehicle? Like if you went back, say 20 minutes after you filled the tank, would it still allow you to put more gas in?
It will, yeah.
Okay.
We haven't
Interesting.
gone to that next, that's the next step where.
There is
there's-
a next
yeah,
step? Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any comments, Councilor?
No, I think we've had a very lengthy discussion on this in June. I'm happy with it.
Anything, Councilor Mellon?
Fuel up and drive on.
Councilor Wells?
Yeah, I just have one question about, you said about the fob and everything to identify the vehicle and the thing. Are we still going to buy fuel for our, say, 5-gallon containers and stuff like that? So how are you going to keep track of that? Or are we purchasing, say, from Ultramar or McEwen's or whatever, to you're filling up 5-gallon cans and for weed eaters and stuff like that? Tell me how you're keeping track of that with
So-
this system.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So through Ultramar, we'll be issued Ultramar cards that are good at the Ultramar station for the high test fuel, for regular gas. Everything else will be done through our 2 public works yards, because we have regular gas, colored and clear diesel. So the fire department, recreation, myself, the fleet mechanic, and we'll also have cards that if for anybody who's traveling out of town, they can take a card with them and gain the benefits of having the fuel card lock system through pricing. So that's how we're gonna tackle all the small machinery, all the small weed eaters, generators, whatever it may be. Big one being the fire department with the small tools on the fire trucks.
So basically you'll have 2 Excel spreadsheets in for all your containers plus the system for the vehicles, correct?
Well, yes and no. What we'll receive with the cards, it will be an invoice or a statement that comes right directly to the office. I'll have everything else from the clear tank or from the regular gas and both diesels. I'll be able to generate that report. The card log or the card system that we used in town will be mailed right to the office, and then we'll have
So
to
the
go from-
cards are just, it'll say Municipality of South Dundas will
That's
be a
right.
card. It won't be assigned to
No.
an individual.
No, it'll be like a card 1, card 2, card 3.
Okay.
We're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, I have no questions. If there's nothing further, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you, Jeff. Twenty 119 short-term rental licensing.
Missed one.
Oh, sorry. 2021-118, that's because I got ahead of myself. Level service winter maintenance.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2021-118, being a bylaw to approve policy 6-12, winter maintenance, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Jeff again.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So during the Committee of the Whole meeting on September 29th, staff presented a new policy for the municipality outlining the winter level of service expectations in South Dundas for council to review. I believe we had a very good discussion on this topic. There was very minimal changes which had to be made. Two which come up to mind were under the objectives with ice formation for roads. In the initial presentation, it had said 16 hours for Centerline Bear. We switched that to 24 hours after the completion of the storm for hard surface roads and for gravel. And then the other topic was under training. We just eliminated the training altogether because that really fell under the Health and Safety Committee for training. We do plow truck training, teaching them the controls and whatnot. So that's kind of a specific training in itself, which I didn't believe it needed to be identified in the policy. So other than that, we will still continue to monitor and evaluate the level of service policy and make changes when needed. I can answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Okay. Council had a good discussion, as Jeff has alluded to at our Committee of the Whole. Are any comments, questions, or concerns on this? Councilor Mellon.
Plowing operations, Jeff, surely you will start before 4 AM. You says plowing will begin as early as 4 AM. As early as needed? Well, like, I mean, if if the plows have to be on the road.
We agreed for 4.
Yeah, I know.
That was the discussion. You never mentioned anything at the time. You want to change it now? And
Well-
if you are, give us the reasons.
Why wait till 4 AM if the weather event started at 6 PM and is gonna be petered out by 4 AM? Why not get the plows on the road? All I'm saying is have that option of being out earlier if needed. I'm not saying, it needs to be that way all the time. But if you can look at the forecast and see that, we're gonna get the main blunt of the storm overnight, and we wait till 4 AM to go out. To me, if the men can be called in to go out at 2 in the morning and have it cleaned up by noon, what's the sense of waiting until 4 to get it cleaned up by 2? That's
Okay.
all. I think,
Okay,
if
so I'm
need,
gonna allow Jeff to answer that question, please.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so under Appendix 2, Procedures for Roadways, it says plowing operations. Plowing operations will begin as early as 4 AM and continue if needed until 6 PM. No plowing operations will be conducted between 6 PM and 4 AM except for public safety or in extreme conditions. So that's where I'm hitting on, is we had to set a bar somewhere. So 4 AM, our plow routes normally take about 6 hours to complete. So 4 to 6, there's 10, we've been around everything once. And if we only work 8 hours, then that's giving us till noon to do the first roads again. And then that opens everything up once. If the storm is lingering, then we could stick around for our 12-hour shift, which would put us till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. By all means, an ice event, ice rain, one of those storms that, it comes in at 2 in the morning and it just hits us, by all means, my road patrollers are on the road and they'll definitely call the people in. But for a normal, clean it up type of operation, I believe 4 is the right time because 1, it helps the ag community, so it maybe gets some of those roads open for the milk trucks. I just received an email today from STEO with the busing. They're now wanting us to be a better advocate of having roads cleared, as buses are now on the road at 5:30 from what the email says. So I had to pick it somewhere. So if by 4, 8 hours is noon. If we bring them in at 2, 8 hours is 10. There's still a lot that can happen between 10 in the morning and really 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, but by all means, I'm not gonna leave you hanging. If we need to be in earlier, they're gonna come in earlier. We just had to have a policy in place
that's all I
as a
want to
starting
hear.
point.
As long as that option is there if needed. Under normal circumstances, I totally agree, 4 AM is lots of time. But I mean, if you have a heavy event overnight, then if the option is there that the men can be called in an hour or two early, I'm ready, I'm good for it.
Councilor Wells.
And I was just, one last comment, when we had this, and we had a good discussion on that, at the end, I think we said about agreeing on the time, and also just the discretion of Jeff there, if just exactly what he said there, so I just saying, like, Jeff's pretty sure he gets everything under control, so I think we're good to go. I like this.
Okay. I don't disagree that, we have to be somewhat flexible depending on the weather, because winter weather is what it is, but I think having some uniform policy of when we tend to start, and if we get the phone call saying, why hasn't my road been cleaned out yet? And you can say, well, the guys have been out since 4 a.m. and the road is 6 hours, and eventually it gets done, is the proper response. We can't be going and, Jeff has set up his plow routes to be as efficient as possible to get around as quickly as possible, so we need to respect that judgment also. But no doubt, like over the last number of years, especially since I've been on council, and it's only a short period of time, things have changed a lot. People expect the roads to be bare and wet before they go to work, and some of that expectation isn't realistic, and I think this is a good policy that at least states what council's expectations are, and Jeff has given up what he thinks he can perform, and if in the end it needs tweaking, then it can be tweaked, but it's better than the one we had before this gets passed, which is nothing. It is, it was our best, their best effort, and not that they didn't do their best effort, but I think it's good that council makes that level of service and we can stick with it. One comment before I close though, because it came to me, just so happened to read that report on public roads again. It was just one of those fluky, because I was going through my big pile on the floor and it was at the bottom, and do I throw it out or I keep it? They mentioned about unmaintained road, non-winter maintained road allowances. And one of the things that did state in there, and we have done that with sidewalks, which is literally passed the bylaw saying they are closed. It actually recommended that we actually close those roads instead of just put up a sign. So it's something to look into and see what others do, but the sign really means nothing if somebody goes down there and gets stuck or something happens. If it's technically closed, as we've done with sidewalks, it might be a better fit. But you can research that, and if you feel it's something that has to come to council, then do so. If not, then we can continue on, but it's just something new. Anything further? Seeing none, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, now we're at 2021-119, short-term rental leasing.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Wells, that bylaw number 2021-119, being a bylaw to license and regulate the operation of short-term rentals, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Nicole, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The attached bylaw and associated fees complete the short-term rentals regulations for South Dundas. Requested modifications during the November 1st, 2021 Committee of the Whole have been completed and are included in the attached bylaw. I can answer any questions that Council may have.
Okay, we'll go around the table. Comments, questions, concerns. Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Thanks, Mayor Boyvelds. I know I was the one that was not super excited about this, but we do have to start somewhere. My only question is, if we had a crazy busy summer like we had last year, do we have enough staffing to actually enact this bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the bylaw basically governs the owners to enforce before staff do. So I believe the staff that should be on during summer months could accommodate any complaints.
Okay.
No, I think that we talked about this and talked about this, and I read it over a couple times, and I'm very satisfied with it. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon? Councilor Wells?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Um, So my comments are to the short-term rental people, and we're not here to put you out of business. We're here to make sure that, ensure the safety and well-being of your customers, because they are customers, you are running a business, and the enjoyment of your neighboring properties that, have new neighbors every week. And most of these neighbors are good, but every once in a while you get a neighbor that you wish you didn't have. And I think this covers it well. I think from a safety point of view, I think between building and fire, I think that's important to your customers, that they can feel safe in it. It's just not a fire trap, because who knows what it is. And as I said, we're not putting you out of business. I think the $500 fee is pretty incidental, and I think any of the fix-ups that you need to do are the right thing to do as it is. So I think it's a good start. Anything further? Seeing none, all in motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Yeah, okay. Council wants 5-minute break, so 5-minute break, please. Okay, and welcome back from our short break. Next one is consent agenda, please.
Moved by Counselor Wells, second by Counselor Mellon, that all items listed under general consent section of the agenda be adopted as presented, save and except for item 10C be moved to discussion items.
Okay, so today in our consent agenda, we have a request from the Iroquois Matilda Lions Club concerning the Grand Trunk whistle marker that's located on Dr. Miller Drive. For those who don't know where that is, on Dr. Miller, it's about halfway between the curve and the golf course. It is something that was there when the railroad was there, and I think it's good that the Lions are recognizing it and making something out of it. We have a key information report on our COVID-19 screening, and we have an unfinished business summary. You've all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Okay. Boards, committees, discussion items. County Council, no County Council. Cemetery Board. No meeting, Mayor. Iroquois District Business Group, no meeting. Morsford BIA.
Trying to set up a meeting with the chair.
Okay. South Nation.
Nope.
Morsford Waterfront.
I'll leave it for the next.
Report, okay. Iroquois Waterfront, there was no meeting either. South Branch Committee.
Nope.
Carmen House.
Nope.
Dundas County Archives, nothing. Tourism Advisory Committee.
Our meet and greet is being postponed until the new year, so that's that.
Economic Development.
We did have a meeting. We have the author Doug Griffith is coming via Zoom November 30th to discuss his book 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. So I believe the media release is going out tomorrow.
Okay, that should be interesting. It's a very interesting book to read.
He's actually tailoring the discussion to South Dundas. So
Oh, that'd be really interesting if
Yeah.
he's done his research.
Yeah.
No disrespect to you out there in Dundas land, South Dundas land, but you know, this gentleman drives some points home that we all need to hear.
And we thought the Economic Development Committee had quite the discussion about that and thought that it wasn't just a good idea to just have him come present, but it was important to have him actually have a relevant discussion to some of the issues we're facing. So through the Economic Development Committee, we thought it was important if we were going to have him come, not to just talk about his book, but to actually talk about how it could potentially apply to South Dundas.
Sounds good, very interesting. Doctor Advisory?
We have a meeting on Friday.
Well, I'm shocked. With that, we'll move on to key information report and fleet update, transportation. Jeff, again, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is my update as I do at the beginning of the past couple of months, just to keep council informed on where we're at with the repairs and maintenance budget. So presently we're at $158,581.21 of a budget of $175,000. We've identified the key contributors through this statement or this key information report. Units 69, 76, 79, 87, 89, 93, and 96, and the reasoning behind it, including SP1, sorry. I also updated council based off of our last conversation with the ad at the Committee of the Whole meeting concerning units 91 and 93. We also have gotten Unit 103 back in service. It's the roll-off truck which had the incident where it rolled. So we now have that back in service. So it's back in the fleet right in time for the winter season. So an update with Unit 91, which is the Volvo grader. The parts were ordered and we're just waiting for them to come in. We're hoping with anticipation to be installed this week at the same price as was quoted, and it may be cheaper based on parts. But right now we're looking at that $12,500 mark. Unit 93, which is the rubber tired excavator, Staff has reached out to 3 repair facilities for pricing, one being Strongco, 2 being Bob Mark Equipment in Napanee. They are a Hyundai dealer. And the third was Delta Power in Winchester. And for those who do not know what Delta Power is, that's the old Wiggins Farm Supply on Highway 43. They are now a Hyundai licensed distributor. Just recently, they became licensed. So all 3 were pricing the same problem. We took the shovel to Delta Power in Winchester to have them, again, look at the noise it was making. And the prices were given for the bearing replacement, with Strongco being the cheapest, even with the float charge to go into Ottawa to deliver and to come back out. And the reason for the drastic change in pricing is because Strongco is a heavy equipment repair facility. They're ready to go. They have the big cranes, the big hoists that can split the machines. Bob Mark Equipment would have to rent a crane to do the split, and so would Delta Power. They'd have to rent a crane also to do the repair. So that's the breakdown. I told council that I would bring back 3 prices, and if you have any questions at this time, I'd be more than willing to answer them.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Gardner?
No, I appreciate, Jeff, you going back and getting those three things. It's nice when you do that and the price comes down. So I think that I don't think are we making a decision on the rubber-tired excavator today?
I think the decision's made.
Okay. So there's
It's not really a tender, it's just a fix, so.
Okay. I mean, it's
Unless you think we have to entertain the other offers that don't make any logical sense.
No. And I do like the
Checking.
1-year warranty on the parts and labor, so it is what it is, but it's less, so that's good.
Councilor Lewis, any comments?
No.
Councilor Mallon?
We got some quotes and, we could sit here and debate what happened to it until cows got home, and after I got to the council meeting here tonight, I got a text saying my big tractor's laying down the field and won't move, so stuff happens, it breaks, we'll drive on. Let's fix it.
Councilor Wells?
No, I'm happy with, definitely on the price. Just one question, do you ever go back to the company that we actually purchased it from?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We did, and yeah, they're no longer in business with Hyundai, so that was out the door.
Really?
Yeah, so, and we did call Hyundai Canada about warranty, and there was no warranty on that machine. So we did do the 2 things that council asked me to do, and it's a no to both. And here we are, we're having this discussion.
You move ahead, next time we'll probably look at a cat or something.
Hopefully, maybe next time we'll be looking at one. I
Maybe
think
not.
you've said that before, Councilor Wells.
Yes, I have.
Okay, glad you see you got the 3 prices. I know the other 2 were out, out because of not being able to do it, but at least, we appreciate the effort. The other thing that sticks out a little bit is, and we've discussed it over the summer, is the Sovema mower that has gone through a lot of work because it goes through a lot of work, and spend a lot of money on fix, including hydraulic hoses, my favorite. Is it ready to put to the scrapyard and buy a new one for next year, or is it gonna cobble her and keep on rolling again?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, I've had numerous conversations with SDG counties, and I asked the question, how often are you replacing these mowers? And they said 3 years. Every 3 years, the mower's getting replaced, and we went 4 years with this one, and I really think it reflects the cost. We did our best to try to make her get through just that extra 1 year, and it came back and it burnt me. So it will be brought to council for a new mower in 2022.
Okay, makes sense. They're just doing things that are beyond anything normal, and they are built for that sort of, but not forever, that's for sure, especially our roadsides. Okay, if there's nothing further, thank you, Jeff. Next one is key information report on municipal drain update and the toy petition. So I'll participate in the update. Any discussion on the toy petition that council needs to do will be directed by Deputy Mayor. So Justin, welcome to council tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. The report you have in front of you is a brief update on all of the current requests that we have received over the last couple of years. So I'll go through them briefly. So the fling, as we all know, is under a new report. We will have a meeting next week, November 16th at 10:30 a.m. roadside for anybody in the current watershed that would like to bring up any existing issues, historical issues, any changes that anybody within the watershed may want to make. So that meeting will consist of myself and Monica Fling, who is the appointed engineer, and any landowners that... Monica Shade, sorry. Thank you.
You got too much fling in you.
Too much fling, yeah. It's other than that, we haven't gone too far with it. We have completed some of the mapping that was required. Elevations were shot with Monica 2 weeks ago, but basically we're at a standstill till we have the roadside meeting to see if there's any historical issues with that. The Saddlemire was kind of a two-part drain. Part of it was done last year by one of the landowners themselves, and this year we're going back to finish up what was left on another landowner's property. That's going to be using the hourly rate, so I have talked to one of our contractors on that, and they are available, I believe, next week. We may go do it depending on water levels. That's the smallest cleanout we have. It's about 500 meters worth of spot cleanouts and a couple of obstruction removals. The Don Haynes Branch 1 is currently still out for tender. It closes November 10th at noon. Notice has been sent to all affected landowners next to the drain that we will be moving equipment on the drain shortly. As soon as the tender closes and we sign contracts, we will be good to go on that one. The Wilson is another one that we're going to use the hourly rate on. I have talked to a contractor and they've agreed to do it with us. Again, that one we're kind of waiting on water levels to drop. This week, fortunately, it has been dry, so we should be able to get in and do some of these within the next 2 weeks. That one, also the notice has been sent out to anybody on the drain itself. Luckily, that one, there's very few landowners, so it's a pretty easy one to get to. Easy access, there's not much brushing on it. It's mostly just a full bottom clean out for the entire length of the drain. The Reuben Matisse is another one. It's a bit of a more difficult one to get at. There is a lot of brushing involved on that one. We are going to use the hourly rate for that. And essentially what I want to do is I want to start at the outlet and work towards Smith's Road. So for anybody that doesn't know where the Reuben Matisse is, it crosses 31, it goes east-west, just kind of north of where the abandoned big gas station is there that used to be there years and years ago. So another challenge with that one is the drain itself does cross the Trans-Canada pipeline twice. So we have to do proper notice for that. That has been completed. I'm still waiting to hear back from them. If I don't hear back, we can continue through and not touch those areas, so we can go back afterwards and clean them if needed. Basically, anything within 30 meters of the pipeline is a no-go until you receive permits from them. That one's going to be expensive to do. I think what we will do is I will start construction, keep track of costs. Once we get close to the $20,000 threshold that was established by our procurement policy for municipal drains, we're going to stop construction for the season, and I will reassess come spring to see if we need to continue upstream further. If we see benefit, and I'll talk to the landowners upstream of that, if they are okay with what we've done, we will cease the clean out on that at the end of the 20K, wherever we may hit that. I'm hoping that will be Smith's Road. That is our attempt. Again, I do have a contractor for that. off of our hourly rate. He's committed to working on that one. Other than that, we have McMartin was a new one that just came about a couple of weeks ago. Beavers have moved in and dammed it up right on County Road 18, essentially. Trappers are in there right now, removing the nuisance beavers. And once that is complete, the trapper is going to give me a call, let me know that we're free to move the dam. I've talked to Jeff about using the roads department for that because it is such a small dam. It doesn't really make sense to get a contractor in to do it. We will have to remove the brush off-site because it is in town. So we'll utilize a dump trailer and possibly the backhoe. If not, maybe myself, I just might go in and start pulling some of the brush out. We will be required to put a small silt fence right by the culvert to ensure anything doesn't flow more downstream of where it is. The Fred Link, I'm still waiting on SNC permits for that one. That one will go to full tender for. That one, for anybody that doesn't know it, it's on Snowbird Road, and it consists of about 4,000 feet of underground pipe. I think it's our only fully closed municipal drain within the township. So we can't use the hourly rate on that one. Basically, it starts at the toy drain, it outlets into the toy and goes east, and it goes from 12-inch pipe up the side of the road, switches to 10-inch, and then switches to 8-inch. So it's 3 different sizes of pipe, 4,000 feet worth of drain. That one I estimate to be well over the $20,000 limit anyways. So that one we're going to have to go to tender once we get permits on that one. The Don Haynes and Garlow obstruction, that one I will be able to use the hourly rate list for once I receive SNC permits. That one is going to be a decent amount of money to stabilize the bank. It will require a lot of riprap. The bank is severely eroded. There is a lot of trees down in there, but I want to wait for the ground to freeze to get in there anyways, because we are going to be running rock trucks through there, well, not rock trucks, but triaxles through there pretty heavily through the fields. So I do want the ground to be frozen before we hit that. I expect that one to be probably some January work. Once our contractors are slow and looking for work, we will have no problem getting somebody in to do that one. The Oliver Keys and the Thorpe Ellis, they're both in the same area. My plan is for them to go to full tender for those next year. What I want to do, the inspection has been completed on it. What I want to do is send notice to all landowners, let them know that we're going to complete these in the dry season. So that would consist of us going in after August 15th, which is the time limit for bird nesting, because there is some brushing required. So we won't be allowed to brush before August 15th. So those 2 there will go to full tender for because they are about 5 kilometers worth of drain. They're kind of both in the same shape. The Oliver Keys seems to require a clean out every 10 to 15 years historically. Looking back is what I've noticed through our files. So it's been about 12 years, I believe, if my records are correct, the last time it was cleaned out. So it is likely, well, it is due for one. That is just kind of the lay of the land. Some of them need cleaning more often, and this one seems to need cleaning more often than others. So it is unfortunate, but that is the lay of the land there. The toy needs another inspection, a much more thorough inspection in the spring to determine if there is anything we could do there. It may require some clean out. It was inspected this year, perhaps not thoroughly enough. That could potentially need another clean out. If it does, we'll do that. Again, it may need to go to tender for that one. If it is a full bottom clean out, it's about 5 kilometers to the outlet. So that would definitely take us over the $20,000 threshold. So that one will also need to go to tender if we need to do a full bottom clean out. If it's just spot clean outs that we determine need to be addressed, then we can get away with using our hourly rate list on that one. And finally, the last one, The dolly was brought up to me by one of our trappers. He contacted me saying that that is fairly prone to beaver activity. For anybody that doesn't know where that one is, there's not a lot of residential use on it or farmland use on it. It's in behind where our compost depot used to be in Morseburg, the north end of the industrial park. But it does go up to the railroad tracks, and there is some roads on the other side. And he informed me that if it does get dammed up enough, it does flood out the road to the north there. So that one will need to be inspected yet. He says it's always problematic in there. It's heavy with bush, it's heavy with swamp area. So it's prime area for beaver activity. If we do need to go in there, again, I'll have to hire a trapper to remove the nuisance beavers. And then I would use the hourly rate to go in and bust up any dams that we do see fit. And I was informed by the trapper that was up in the area, there's probably, he said 10 beaver dams as of 2 years ago, last time he was there, that he doesn't believe anybody has gone in to address yet. So that's something that I'll go in and inspect fairly soon. And if needed, I'll get the trapper in, and that's something we can do over the winter in that area. Would be better to go in the winter when the ground's frozen there as well. So that could be, we have up until March 15th to do these. That's our cutoff for drains. So that's one that we could do perhaps in February. That's all I have for a drainage update. So if there's any questions before I speak on the toy petition, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Make this comment before council says anything. That was an excellent report, Justin. We haven't had one of these reports ever. Glad to see you're working hard and diligently on this, because this is why we wanted a person of your caliber to be here. As you know, drains have gotten way behind, but this gives council and the public and mainly landowners an idea of what's going on out there. We're a long way from caught up, as you know, but at least we've got something started, and I think this is a really good start. I will make this comment that if you, at this time of year, if you're waiting for every drip of water to be out of a drain, you're wasting your time. You just got to work in the slop, because it's relatively dry right now. It's the driest I've seen in a long time this time of year. I know it was dry last year too, but waiting for every drip to be out, it's not going to work. And I know some of those bad drains, you're scooping more water in the dirt, but that's just, once you get her going, the rest will clean out and it'll be easy. You just got to get going. Anyway, turn to Councilor Mellon, because this is our favorite subject, so I want to see his comments on this.
I got to echo what the mayor has said, that there's a lot of useful information in here, something we haven't had to deal with. Such a shame. I'm glad to see you're moving ahead with a lot of these. I guess the Matisse drain, you mentioned you were thinking of doing it over 2 years in 2 stages to stay under the 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
I caution you on that. It may work. That may be the best way to do, but if you can look at it out of a cost analysis perspective, I guess, because if you're going to do it, you know, if you went with the tender, it may end up being cheaper over the long run. I don't know. I think you need to look at that. That's the only one doing it your way may work. I don't know. When I see that, I just sort of think, if you tendered the whole job. But anyways, I sort of like what you're doing. And you mentioned that any of the work that may be done next summer, like late summer, whatever, you're going to send out a notice to let the landowners know that, the work may take place in August or something, end of August or September. Somebody might lose 10 rows of corn, but, well, it might be me. Oh, hold on now, we don't want to do that.
You didn't disclose your pecuniary
No,
interest.
I'm going to shut up now. Drive on. No.
Councilor Wells, any comments, questions, concerns?
I don't. Just thought it was a good report, Justin. It's, like I said, we haven't seen this for a while, so it's nice to see something.
Councilor Lewis?
I've never seen a report like this. Good work, and by the looks of it, you've been a busy little beaver.
Deputy Mayor?
No, I love the format of the report. I think for those of us that aren't in the agricultural field, it explains it, it's all there, and it's a really nice living, fluid record. So I really, really like it.
Okay. One thing I did think of, Justin, on your work in the Haynes and the Garlow, and you want to bring in riprap, the quarries will be all closed, so whoever you're thinking of getting done, I'm assuming is going to have
Yep.
that stockpile ready to roll then.
Yeah, I'm gonna, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna talk to the contractor and make sure that, I'm gonna walk them out to site, get them to assess it, and have their determination of how much. We may even be able, depending on how dry the fields are there, we may be able to get them in soon and just stockpile it there and come back.
It's wetter than that.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, like, it doesn't take much to make a track,
Mhm.
because the ground did get saturated. It is dry relatively, but I like your idea, wait until it freezes, because if it freezes, then, and you know, you keep it bare, you can zing right through there with trucks, and it works real slick, so. Okay, anything else on this section? Okay, then you can go ahead with the toy petition. Deputy Mayor can.
Okay, well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the toy petition, as we know, has been dragging on for a little bit here. So I did meet with all of the original petitioners a couple of times so far, and they have agreed to withdraw from the petition themselves. So they're all in agreement to withdraw their names, so I had them sign the Form 188E to withdraw it. We filed it with the clerk. So essentially, because there's nobody left on the petition, as per the Drainage Act, Section 4(1)B, it's no longer valid. So the preliminary report was still open for discussion. I believe we can now close it out and put this one to bed. They don't want to carry on any further, so I think we're covered there. I would like to add in a note, though, that is a bad section of the toy altogether. In the future, if we are looking at, we'll see how report updating goes, that is perhaps one that we do look at to potentially update that area of the toy. I know it is expensive, but with the changes of land use over time, obviously the entire toy is underperforming as a whole. It may just be a bad situation that they're in that area, but it is something worth looking at, and maybe get a cost analysis from perhaps Monica to see what her ballpark would be, her idea of what it would be to update that report. But as far as that petition is concerned, we can close it out.
Okay.
So
Thanks, Justin. Councillor Mellon, any comments?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, they're not gonna continue any farther with this. And as far as, I think it's clear under our responsibilities in the Drainage Act, if they want to continue with the maintenance, they can apply for maintenance. If they want to apply for a petition for a re-engineered drain, that's, the ball's in their court, as far as I'm concerned. If they want to see, drastic results, I think, they're going to have to decide what they want to do and how much they want to spend. And we'll just leave it to them. And
Yep.
I would convey that message to them and say, if we'll do the maintenance audit, or you can petition for a re-engineered drain. And I think they all realize that that's going to be a costly little adventure.
yes.
Very costly, actually. Yeah, and the old petition, the cost will be borne by the people that signed it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, as per the Drainage Act.
Is supposed to work. That's all been, how should I put this? It was all the i's were dotted and t's were crossed on that one, okay? That's the way it is. Maybe the petition, maybe the drain engineered report, whatever, maybe wasn't great, or maybe what they didn't want, I don't know, but the fact of the matter is, that's how the Drainage Act works, so, they can drive on from there and pay for that, they're responsible for the maintenance of, or that engineered report, so, yeah. And, you know, what they want to do with the drain from there here on is up to them.
Good. Councillor Wells?
This thing's been going on for a long time. It's good that they're happy with things now, the way things are going. That drain there, actually, how many landowners would use that toy drain?
Sorry, through you, Deputy Mayor,
Yeah.
the entire toy drain or just that petition that we're pulling?
Well, I know I know who
So
owns
the-
that, but if work's to be done on the whole thing, it would be all the,
So just from the outlet to where this is concerned, it's 5 kilometers. I believe the rest of the toy, you guys may be able to correct me, I think it's 12 kilometers, the whole length of the toy. It's a big one. It's one of our larger ones.
no, as long as everyone's happy, we're good.
Councillor Lewis?
No, good work, Justin.
Thank you.
Okay. I have no comments.
The overall report, Justin, as I said, excellent report.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is a letter from Jennifer Gilbert. She lives a resident of here in Morrisburg, specifically Caraway Crescent. As council's read, she has an issue with her neighbor smoking cannabis on the porch that's directly beside her, and as council may be aware, that part of Caraway is four or five row house type units. She has called her MPP concerning this, because in theory the Smoke Free Ontario Act and that act covers it in its regs. Somewhat, but not really. So he passed it off to me. And I said, no, you call your MPP back, because it's an Ontario problem, not a municipal problem. And then they had the gall to say, well, some municipalities regulate smoking. And I said, well, fair enough. Right now we don't. She has an issue that I think she makes sense. However, I did tell her that I wasn't really in favor of the municipality enacting a bylaw to enforce this kind of work. If she was since she owns her unit and the other person rents his unit, you can't go to the landlord tenant board. There's no avenue for her because of her ownership. I will ask Nicole on her opinion from bylaw, like, tell me if I'm right or wrong, or what's your thoughts on this person's issue, and then we as council can determine if we're going to do anything at all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I had the pleasure of speaking with Jennifer, I guess a couple weeks ago. And unfortunately, from a bylaw officer perspective, there isn't anything that we could do unless the municipality adopts a specific bylaw. Even as a renter, unfortunately, that person has the right to do whatever they want on their property, as cannabis is considered legal at this point. The most that I could advise her was to complain to the landlord that owns the property, and that's pretty much all the avenues that we have at this point. Landlord-tenant board would act on behalf of the tenant and the landlord, and she isn't part of that scenario, so she wouldn't be able to go that route.
Okay, so, but in theory, we could enact a bylaw to deal with that if we so desired, or ask staff to research it and go any further. So, as I said, I think this is more a provincial issue than a municipal issue. However, if council wants, and she's frustrated, I'm not denying it, that she's in a bad situation, but it's a bad situation, A, brought on by a federal government decided that cannabis was going to be legal, and B, by a provincial government doesn't really want to do the work that they should do to deal with specific issues of this nature. So And I don't know how they'd enforce it, because I'm not sure OPP want to go and deal with it, but somebody else. I don't know. We could do it. If council wants to do it, go ahead. Your thoughts?
The part in this letter that really got to me, she has kids, right? I think it's identified in there. She identifies that she has kids. I think it's so hard with this because I do hate the upper levels passing the buck again to the municipalities. Because quite honestly, I take my dog for the walk. I spell it all over the place. So we'd be busy bylaw, I think, to enforce this. But I don't know if we can act on her behalf and push like, I don't know if we can have that dialogue. I know that if I was there, whenever I was a single mom and I had to live with Gardner beside that would have just driven me absolutely crazy. And of course with the rental market, and I understand she owns her property, but with the housing market as it is, people are trapped in situations that they don't want to be trapped in, and there's not a lot, you can't just pick up and move. So my heart wishes that we could take on everything. I just don't know the practicalities of the municipality trying to strong arm the province. That's the hard part with this. And I do not like kids growing up around this stuff because it is a legal substance, but it's not legal for children. So there's that.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's, like, if she does have underage children, maybe that is a situation where she could, but again, the rights of the tenant, right? The rights of the homeowner and the tenant. It would have been nice if the province and federal government would have thought this through a little bit better. So I don't know, my heart, I feel for her because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're trapped in your own house.
My heart goes out to the lady, but, you know, if we do decide to put a bylaw in, I think our bylaw officer could most likely go to, a quarter of the houses in Morrisburg alone. Because it seems like every time you turn around, somebody's got a twister in their mouth, you know? I don't, and I think maybe the MPP should do his job. That's why he was elected, and now put it down to municipal council. But my heart goes out to her, but I really don't think that we can do anything about it. And that's where I'll leave it for now.
Councilman
You know, so I'm asking for help. Please help me and others live in a cannabis-free lifestyle. Well, the feds decided it should be legal. The province didn't have the to step up and regulate it the way it should be, and everything pushed down to us. This is, to me, out of our jurisdiction. I'm not prepared to try and set a bylaw where we regulate what a person can do inside their own home, even though I can totally sympathize with this individual, and I don't think her lifestyle in her home should be altered by the goings on or what happens in another house or beside you. But I don't think, well, I'm not in favor of trying to regulate, I guess, if you will, if cannabis can be smoked in your home.
It's smoked on the porch.
On the porch.
That's where
And
he
that-
does
that-
go out of the house to smoke on the porch, and then it evolves into
Yeah,
her house and the rest of the area.
I just, it opens up a whole can of, now, I don't know what to tell her, I don't know what to say, but I don't think it's, to me, I think this is out of our jurisdiction, how we can handle this or help her. Get on the phone. If we could send a letter, you know, asking on her behalf, you know, I don't know, you know, some kind of correspondence to our MPP and to different levels of government or other, organizations. I don't know, pen a letter, requesting, something to be done for situations like this. I don't know. Send it out to other municipalities, see if anybody else would endorse it or help us or help the individuals like this that are stuck in the same type of situation.
Councilor Wells?
I can basically just echo what council says here. Like, I feel sorry for this lady. The federal government put us in this situation. And again, it's against the law to go out on the road and go in your vehicle or go anywhere else in public to actually, it's treated like alcohol. So the only spot these people can smoke their stuff is in their own residence. So as much as I feel, because myself, like I hate the smell of it myself. So, and if it was right beside me, yeah, it wouldn't be nice. But, and again, I don't know what we can do about it. The feds brought it down. The province now, I would like to see the numbers on revenue this is bringing in now to the province and the federal government, and for us to try to put a bylaw in, I think it would just be a waste of time because again, they're not breaking the law. They're supposed to actually smoke at their residence. They can't smoke it out in public. It's a bad situation, and I don't know how I don't think, honestly, we can. And if we start down this road, it's going to be just the hours, and you just be nice for if the neighbor, she talked to him, it says here, confronted 4 times, would respect her thing, like, I don't know, maybe go out in the backyard or something. I don't know, to do the smoking. She doesn't say anything about kids in here, like there's no kids in there, but I agree with Deputy Mayor, like especially if you had your kids out playing, you don't want them to endure that. So I just my heart goes out to her. It's just something we're probably not going to be able to help her.
Okay. I agree with council. I sympathize with their situation. I believe council should at least support her and write a letter to our MPP stating our concerns for this resident and how cannabis is affecting her life, and to deal with it in 2 ways. Deal with it directly with one of his constituents, have a chat with her, and secondly, I'll go to the Legislative Assembly and see if there's something that he could push through or get started to amend the Smoke Free Ontario Act to deal with these kind of situations, because it's, this was a 3 or 4 passing the buck conversation email with this lady before I told her, you need to write a letter to council because I can't do anything of my own. And I think, I agree with council. We can't do everything like this. We'd be busy every day, and we're actually limited staff as it is right now. But it's a provincial responsibility. They deal with smoking. This is just an offsuit. I think he needs to come to be taken, not to task, but at least come and respond accordingly instead of sending it to a staffer, which is what he did. It wasn't anyway. If council agrees, we send a letter asking our local MPP to address this concern and see if he should do more than just address it here.
No, I definitely agree with that. Like, maybe staff can reach out to send an email to see if this actual letter was sent to the MPP. And if it wasn't, send it to them and like having council endorse it, that we support this letter, and see if there's any way the MPP or whoever can help us out, or help her out.
I guess we can attach this letter,
Yeah.
since it is a public document now, and say this, this is a concern that you should deal with. I think you should contact her directly. Council in agreement?
Agree.
Would it be a little bit too premature maybe to address it out to other
I
municipalities?
do so. I think
Yeah,
this,
we'll just
let's
start with
stick
this
to this
step
one,
first.
and then we'll see where it goes.
Agree, Mayor.
You're
Yep.
good with that, Madam Clerk? Okay. Motion Waterfront Committee minutes, revised, word revised really gets to me, October 20th.
Okay, we'll start with what hopefully is the easy one. So if council can turn to 114, and it's number 6. So it's Hannah Warren's family has requested a memorial bench. If you go down a little further, it shows that it's in the shape of a butterfly, and they have requested that it be placed, if you go on the second page after the picture of the bench, between the two rocks, and actually it's a really good spot for it, between the two rocks just beside the splash pad. Hannah has a long connection, I've heard, with the park, loved that. It was her favorite place, and the family wanted to put something that was kid-like, that would be around families and stuff, and not so doom and gloom maybe with our other benches. And the thought is, and I don't know if it's mentioned here, but it was mentioned at the meeting that the bench would be potentially painted like a monarch butterfly. So they have done the fundraising or donation, whatever the case may be. They have the money, and they would like to donate it and have it placed there. So I guess I'm looking for permission to pass it along and have them work with staff to get the bench put into place.
Okay. Do you have a resolution for that, Madam Clerk, or how you want to work with that?
I do not. Typically, what we do is in the consent, we approve the minutes and we refer it back to staff to work with the committee to bring the project to fruition.
Okay. Well, the reason I say it is outside our bench policy, and we had a long, lengthy debate on bench policy, and it seems like it's getting longer and longer and longer, and I just want to make sure that, because typically you would look at that as staff and say it does fit in our policy, so council needs to approve it.
Okay.
So I'm thinking we as council should actually have a motion that approves that
Okay.
outside our bench policy.
Can I speak to the second item while?
Yeah,
Clerk?
you'll make that up and then okay, you go ahead.
Okay, so the second item, there was some, I don't know if I say confusion, but it just, so in the minutes, it reflects that there was an agreed upon item in the pathway. There's the Lions Club Pagoda, and there was a meeting where we did discuss extending the pathway to connect behind the pagoda. So the pagoda is already connected from the main pathway that runs along the water. It's got a really nice stone path to it, and there was some discussion. We did meet as a group down by the water after this meeting, and we had a discussion at the location and had a pretty fulsome debate back and forth the Waterfront Committee. And basically we canceled out, I think, Madam Clerk, we canceled out anything, but it's not reflected in the minutes. So if we approve the minutes, then we're approving the fact that we agreed to move it forward when in fact it was a tie. And half the committee didn't agree with adding that section of the path and the other half wanted it.
Was the secretary there to take minutes?
Pardon?
Was the secretary there to take
Yes,
minutes?
so there are minutes that will be following of that meeting.
They're not,
No.
okay. Procedurally wise, Madam Clerk,
Sorry?
procedurally wise, how does this work for them?
Well, I didn't look at their minutes, sorry.
I know I'm making you multitask, but you're good at that.
I would say that we don't accept their minutes then.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't-
Until we get the new ones?
Yeah, and then the bench can be a separate request that I
Yes.
brought forward? Okay.
Okay. What do we need to do not to accept the minutes then? And send it back to committee?
We'll change the consent agenda, or not the consent.
No, it's not in there now,
No, we'll
so.
put it in our minutes that we do not approve their October 20th minutes,
Okay,
and then I'll send it back to them and tell them
Okay,
the
good.
reason why.
okay. Okay. They'll just have to go through it and amend the minutes properly and then send it back
Okay.
for us
Perfect.
on that specific request, please. It is a bit, it's a confusing situation where it seems like it was carried and then not, and I think council needs to be very correct in what we're gonna do there.
Well, and also matches the actions, because there was a deadline to get the committee's recommendation to move forward to actually add the extension onto the pathway, and that deadline has since passed. So it's just housekeeping, I guess, to clean it up and make sure it properly reflects.
Okay, can you send that on to the committee chair
Yes, I
and
will.
the
Yep.
secretary? The council would
Yep.
appreciate it just being cleaned up for record-keeping purposes, please. Do you have that motion ready?
I do.
Please, and thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Wells, that council approve the request from the Morrisburg Waterfront Committee to place a memorial bench that resembles a monarch butterfly in the Earl Baker Park as requested by the Warren Saunders family.
You good with that?
Yes, and they're donating it, but I
Yes.
get, okay. Yep,
I'll say as donated by the,
yeah.
Okay, Councilor Lewis, any comment?
I have no problem.
I don't either. I think this is great, you know. It may not fit our tight bed policy, but I mean, you know, it makes a lot of logical sense for this family and for the community, so.
And you can look at this too, as like you can sit on it, but it could actually be like, considered like a play structure. It doesn't really have to be, you get a kid up there, it's gonna be laying up against the wings and that. It won't be sitting there,
Well,
so.
the kids will love it.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. I think
It's
it's
a
a very,
nice-
very good thing and very
Yeah.
good,
Very nice of
Very
that
nice.
family, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Any notices of motion tonight, Madam Clerk?
no, sir.
Ratification bylaw, please.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that bylaw number 2021-120, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Before I ask the clerk to read the adjournment motion, I'd like to thank council for their work on the meeting tonight. I'd like to thank staff for all their reports. And I'd like to thank the audience for participating in democracy in South Dundas. Madam Clerk?
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Councillor Wells, that council now adjourn to meet again at the call of the chair.
All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you very much and have a good night.